Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I am Deepika Mehto, and coming up in the next 30 minutes. Early voting begins in 26 of 50 US states. Both presidential candidates trade barbs over immigration and economy. Israel pounds bombs at Beirut and Gaza after Hezbollah launched drone at Netanyahu's home. Israeli Prime Minister says attempt to assassinate him is their gravest mistake. G7 holds first ever meeting dedicated to defense in Naples. Minister back Ukraine NATO bid raises concern over UN peacekeeper security in Lebanon. And in cricket, India versus New Zealand to resume test on final day. New Zealand needs 107 runs to win the first test. A very good morning to all our viewers. Let's begin with the US elections. Now, with US presidential elections just 17 days ahead, early voting has started taking place across 26 states and more are going to begin soon. Both candidates are focusing on early voters as ignoring them would be disastrous and pinpointing them would give them brownie points as the voters will go back after voting and encourage others in their respective candidates' favor. Out of those 26 states who initiated early voting on Saturday, Detroit, Michigan joined in. Nevada also began the same on Saturday. Georgia, Pennsylvania and others have already begun with early voting. To take advantage of the situation, not only the candidates but bakery owners too have started selling Trump and Harris cakes in Michigan. For 40 years, a bakery in Detroit suburbs have been predicting the winner of the presidential election, selling blue and red chocolate chip cookies for Democrats and Republican voters respectively, with the names of the candidates written on the top. Kamala Harris hyped up the voters in Detroit, Michigan, who are going to vote. In a rally in Detroit, she urged the undecided voters by saying that Trump is hardly telling anything about how the economy will work. She further accused Donald Trump to be self-centric and mythical.
I keep talking about somebody needs to just watch his rallies if you're not really sure how to vote. Because he spends full time talking about himself and mythical characters. Hey, Detroit, are we ready? Because the power is with the people. God bless you. Thank you. I'll see you out there. Thank you all.
The Republican candidate Donald Trump took on his rival in a very symbolic way. In a rally in La Trobe, the former US president invoked the memory of golf legend Arnold Palmer, guns and the immigrants. He said Kamala Harris is a threat to democracy.
Harris, who shouldn't be there, she's a threat to democracy. The way they took over, they call me a threat to democracy, right? She's a threat to democracy because she shouldn't even be the candidate. They should have picked a candidate fairly, not just given her because they want to be politically correct. And they went back to the members' bag.
Shifting focus, tensions in West Asia have been escalating since the elimination of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. In a recent attack, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accused Hezbollah of trying to assassinate him and his wife on Saturday. Calling the strike a grave mistake, Benjamin Netanyahu, in a social media post, said that anyone who tries to harm Israel citizens will pay a heavy price, quote unquote. Netanyahu's office said that a drone was launched towards his residence in the central town of Caesarea, but he and his wife were not home and there were no injuries. Meanwhile, Israel's retaliatory attacks are ongoing on Hamas and Lebanon. Israel struck Beit Lahiya town in northern Gaza on Saturday, hitting several houses and a multi-story residential building. Israel also carried out at least a dozen airstrikes on Beirut in the heaviest attack the Lebanese capital witnessed in more than a week. Huge plumes of smoke were seen rising over the city's southern suburbs, where Hezbollah's main base is located. In a statement on Saturday, defense ministers of the G7 countries said that the major democracies support Ukraine's irreversible path to full Euro-Atlantic integration, including NATO membership, adding that the G7 shall continue to provide assistance to Ukraine, including military assistance in the short and long term in its conflict with Russia. The summit is the first session in the history of G7 dedicated to defense in the ministerial meetings program. Italy holds the 2024 chair of the group that also includes the United States, Canada, Britain, France, Germany and Japan. The representatives of the European Union, NATO and the Ukrainian defense minister also joined the talks in Naples. G7 defense ministers support the Lebanese armed forces in their essential and indispensable role for protection, security and stability of Lebanon as per the joint statement. The final statement, read by Italian defense minister, also stressed on the firm support for Ukraine and expressed concerns about the intensification of military cooperation between China and Russia, as well as the development of North Korea's nuclear program. Now, at the G7 summit, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said that U.S. would like to see Israel scale back some of its strikes in and around the Lebanese capital of Beirut. Talking to media at a G7 defense gathering in Italy, Austin urged Israel to opt for negotiations.
I say the same thing that I said, about Gaza, and continue to say. The numbers of casualties civilian casualties have been far too high. We'd like to see, Israel scale back on some of the strikes that it's taking, especially in and around Beirut. And we'd like to see things transition to some sort of negotiation that would allow civilians on both sides of the border to return to their homes. And that's the point that I'll continue to make with Minister Gallant. And I think, yes, he does take on my input.
Defense ministers from the world's 7 leading economies, the G7, gathered in Italy's Naples on Saturday. Italian Defense Minister Guido Crosetto called it an extraordinary moment and emphasized that Russia-Ukraine conflict and the critical situation in West Asia highlight a deteriorated security framework.
Marks an extraordinary moment as we are about to commence for the first time the G7 defense meeting. For nearly 50 years, the Group of 7 have gathered to address geopolitical, social, and economic challenges of global importance. But until today, the opportunity to meet in this format and the need to discuss in depth on defense and security matters have never been taken into consideration.
European Union's Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell said that achieving a ceasefire in West Asia is a priority and suggested that the killing of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar by Israeli forces could create new opportunities for reaching a ceasefire, releasing hostages and pursuing a political solution.
Lebanon is at that moment the most important and pressing issue. Certainly, after the killing of Yahya Sinwar, a new perspective is open, and we have to use it in order to reach a ceasefire, to release the remaining hostages, and to look for a political perspective.
Now, along with the G7 defense ministers' meet focused on Ukraine and West Asia conflicts, trilateral talks were also held between the defense ministers of Italy, Britain and Japan in Naples. This meeting was attended by Italy's Guido Crosetto, Britain's John Healey and Japan's Jen Nakatani. The focus of this meeting circled around the global combat air program that involves the development of a 6th-generation stealth fighter. Now, Italy's defense minister and U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin held a bilateral meeting on Saturday following the G7 summit. During the opening remarks, the ministers addressed topics such as the conflicts in Ukraine and the West Asia, but also tensions in the Indo-Pacific region and Africa. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has summoned a cabinet meeting for Monday to address the court's rejection of government orders to detain a group of migrants in Albania. A Rome court on Friday ruled that 4 migrants in a reception facility in Albania had a right to be brought to Italy, dealing a blow to Meloni's plan to divert asylum seekers abroad. The migrants were taken to Albania earlier this week by an Italian Navy ship. They originally numbered 16, but 4 have already been brought to Italy for health reasons or because they were minors. The court said the 12 migrants in the new Albanian facility of Jadir had to return to Italy because their countries of origin, which are Egypt and Bangladesh, could not be considered as safe. Let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Japan has begun with their quirkiest way of celebrating Halloween, with trains becoming set for actors to play zombies. It is said to be world's first haunted house experience on a running Shinkansen. Spanning 2.5 hours from Tokyo to Osaka, it was inspired by the hit 2016 South Korean action horror movie called Train to Busan. With an oar as a symbol of hope, hundreds of breast cancer survivors gathered in Chile to compete in the second Dragon Boat Festival. Groups of 20 women wearing pink t-shirts rowed in dragon boats of Chinese origin in Karen Lagoon on the outskirts of the capital, Santiago. In Slovakia, a 66-year-old mushroom picker was airlifted to a hospital after being attacked by a brown bear. The man was attacked by the female bear near the village of Konyanka. An intervention team was dispatched to the area and the residents were advised to steer clear of nearby forests. The annual Tompkins Square Halloween Talk Parade returned to New York's East Village on Saturday. The diverse cast of characters from a funny little Cinderella to hip-hop group Run DMC, complete with some talky bling. Some talks paid homage to New York City, while others attempted to look like a totally different animal for the day. Time to take a short break, but still to come on the other side. India's President Draupadi Murmu returns to New Delhi after successful state visits to Algeria, Mauritania and Malawi. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to visit Russia for the 16th BRICS summit taking place in Kazan. Delhi hosts Half Marathon 2024, showcasing some of India's top long-distance running talent.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked, we just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India Live with me, Deepika. India's President Draupadi Murmu returned to New Delhi after successfully concluding state visits to Algeria, Mauritania and Malawi, setting new milestones in India-Africa relationship. On the final day of her visit to the East African nation of Malawi, President Draupadi Murmu visited the Sri Radhakrishna temple in Lilongwe. The temple is an important place of cultural and religious significance for the Indian diaspora residing in Malawi and is a major center for community gathering. Later, she also visited the famous Malawi Lake. Lake Malawi, also known as Nyasa for Nyasa, is the southernmost large lakes in Africa and it is the 4th largest lake by volume across the world. It is also the 3rd deepest freshwater lake in the world. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to visit Russia for the 16th BRICS summit taking place in Kazan. The summit, themed Strengthening Multilateralism for Just Global Development and Security, will serve as a crucial platform for the leaders to address key global issues and challenges. During his visit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also expected to engage in bilateral meetings with his counterparts from BRICS member countries and invited leaders. Here's more.
BRICS, an important grouping, brings together the major emerging economies from the world. This year, the 16th BRICS summit is being held in Kazan, Russia. BRICS countries have been the main engines of global economic growth over the years. On Friday, Russian President Vladimir Putin highlighted similar points.
This year, the average rate of BRICS economic growth is projected at 4%. This is greater than both G7's growth rate, which is only 1.7%, and global growth rate, which is 3.2%. This is a forecast.
President Putin echoed Prime Minister Narendra Modi's stance on BRICS, that the grouping is not anti-Western, but rather non-Western.
BRICS never was meant to against anyone. The Indian Prime Minister put it aptly of late. He has said that BRICS is not an anti-Western group, it's just a non-Western group. The BRICS does not counterpose itself to anyone. It is a group of nations that work in concert and have shared values and shared goals of development and take each other's interests.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Russia from 22nd to 23rd October 2024 to attend this summit. This year's theme for the summit is Strengthening Multilateralism for Just Global Development and Security. Leaders are expected to discuss key global issues. Ahead of the summit, Russian President Vladimir Putin praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his efforts towards paving a solution to the Ukraine war.
Our mediation is wanted. We will gladly work with the colleagues. Same refers to our friends. In particular, I mean the Prime Minister Modi. While talking with His Excellency over the phone, each time he raises this matter and expresses his considerations, and we are grateful to him for that.
The association now includes 10 countries: Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates joined BRICS as new full members. BRICS Plus, as the organization has been informally called since its expansion, now accounts for 37.3% of world GDP. Siddharth Bharadwaj's report for DD India.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the country. Building on India's neighbourhood first policy and Sagar outlook, India's Navy ship INS Kalpeni arrived in Colombo on Saturday. The ship has brought in essential technical support tools that will be handed over to Sri Lanka Navy. In addition to taking in replenishment, the ship's crew will visit places of importance in and around Colombo. Amid decreasing temperature, air quality in the capital, New Delhi, was marked poor on Sunday morning. Meteorological conditions are highly unfavourable for effective dispersion of pollutants. Air quality of Mumbai, however, was marked good, while Pune and Ahmedabad got a satisfactory pass. In Chhattisgarh, the 77-day-long Grand Festival of Bastar Dashera concluded on Saturday. It accounts as the longest festivals in India and across the world. Goddess Danteshwari Devi is worshipped, who is believed to hold immense significance for the tribal communities. You're watching DD India Live, and now it's time to get you all the latest from the world of sports. To begin with cricket first, India and New Zealand will resume match on the final day of first test in Bengaluru on Sunday. Earlier on day 4, Sarfaraz Khan struck a majestic 150, while Rishabh Pant made a brisk 99 as India were all out for 462 in their second innings. The hosts, who were bowled out for 46 in the first innings, set New Zealand a target of 107. Just when New Zealand came out to bat late in the final session, rain brought an early end to the day's play, with the visitors playing just 4 balls in the second innings, with openers Tom Latham and David Conway yet to open their accounts. In women's cricket, South Africa is all set to clash with New Zealand in the finals of the ICC T20 Cricket World Cup. South Africa avenged their last year's defeat in Newlands with a convincing 8-wicket victory over defending champions Australia in the first semi-finals in Dubai. Meanwhile, New Zealand have reached the final after 14 years after defeating West Indies by 8 runs in a nail-biting semi-final in Sharjah that took place on Friday. The Sophie Devine-led Kiwis will be looking forward to continue their momentum and lift the title when they face Laura Wolvedot-led South African in Sunday's showdown. And the 19th edition of the Delhi Half Marathon, organized by Vedanta, kicked off from the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium on Sunday. Delhi Half Marathon is a gold standard World Athletics labeled road race. Started in the year 2005, the event will mark its 19th edition. Some of India's top women road racers, including Kavita Yadav, Preeti Lamba and Nirma Thakur, will be competing in the race. Meanwhile, men's athletes who are Kiran Matre and Savan Barwal will also be seen in the race. Rounding out the elite field is India's Kalidas Hirve, whose extensive marathon experience adds depth to the competition. Former 5,000-meter world champion Mukhtar Idris will return to lead a star-studded international lineup. He will be joined by 2-time Olympic gold medalist Joshua Cheptegei, who increases expectations for a course record in men's race. And the International Kashmir Marathon 2024 began at the wee hours of Sunday morning. With about 2,000 participants, the event aims at showcasing the world that law and order and the situation has improved in the valley of Jammu and Kashmir. Athletes from different countries are celebrating this sport. Celebrities also took place in the marathon. J&K Chief Minister Omar Abdullah also participated and flagged off the marathon. Now, colourful mascot characters from Japan and elsewhere gathered in the western city of Hikone to entertain people. The event is part of local efforts to revitalize the economy. The mascots included the multicoloured Ruma doll-shaped Haikamuna-san and the boiled egg-like Wakutama-kun.
重たいですけど大丈夫。そうなんですよ。はい、失礼します。失礼します。たいと思います。まず。もう一枚いきます。That's all for this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Deepika, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.